All right, we ended at coaching. So we want to develop people for the future. And it's gonna sound like things like, try this, developing others, empathy, self-awareness, to develop an employee, improve performance, or develop long-term strengths. And it typically has a positive overall climate. So let's give an example of when you would use these leadership styles. So I think when we taught a class with this once, and we gave an example of what it looks like in a salon.
Well, what I can tell you is one of my most recent experiences where I had to jump back and forth and use a lot of these leadership styles at one given moment was at a hair show that I did. And in what was that? I think it was November, matter of fact, of last year.
Women's Expo.
And I find myself in certain situations to where I'm having to use several of these leadership styles at one time. And I can remember a situation last year where I had a crew of stylists traveling with me to do a hair show. And that particular day, we seemed to be the only booth that were providing hair care services at the time with a purchase. So we ended up with this list of like 50, 60 some odd people that were trying to get hair services done. And so there was basically more customers than there were stylists. And some of the stylists that I had with me were not able to perform some of the services.
Wow.
Right. Which was an eye-opener for me because, of course, prior to conversation as a leader, I'm already asking the correct questions, what everyone's capabilities are. But sometimes when you're in that moment and it's showtime, you start to see quick, fast, in a hurry who's really able to do what they said that they were willing to do. Wow. So in that moment, I didn't have time to run, hide, and duck, and hide my tail. I had to, first off, jump into the visionary leadership style and have a powwow. And now in that moment, I had to reconform what we had initially started to make things work faster, be more efficient, and for us to still to be able to provide a quality service to those who were on that list. So I had to, reestablish a new vision. Then I had to jump into the commanding space, or the commanding leadership style, and get everyone on board with timing. So I need you all to follow suit. Each client, we have 15 minutes to get them in and out of our chairs from beginning to end. So in that moment, it was do what I tell you to do.
So you went from commanding, you pretty much, and then you went to kind of being visionary. So this is the situation we got. This is what we need to happen. So I'm going to kind of tell you what the end state is. And now we're going to jump into pace setting, because now we getting ready to get this done.
Yes.
So I need you guys, all hands on deck. And you do this. I need you over here. So now you're directing folks, but you're keeping a very high tempo, because we got to get this crowd simmered down.
Got to get the crowd simmered down. We had to provide the services. We also had to sell a certain amount of retail. So I had to pull my strong retail people and put them in the front lines of selling the product. Because once the product got sold, then the services came. Right. So very quickly, I had to jump into those leadership styles. And I'm going to tell you guys something. We moved and it worked out amazingly. And when it was all said and done, having a powwow after, once everything was over with, the team were just so surprised at the amount of work we were able to get done in the short amount of time, and how they all felt about the positions they were in. So since that was established, the next day, we were able to kick back into that same pace setting from the beginning, set in the same vision that we had for that latter part of that day. And everyone knew what their job was. So the coaching was easy for me that next day, because then it was just basically like, I liked what you did yesterday. These were your numbers. This is how you performed. I need you to give that same energy today. we're in high gear. We're expecting more people today, and it were more people the next day, and it happened all over again. So I just love this chart because a lot of times you don't realize that you are jumping into these different roles. And what I can tell you from my background of being an educator, I knew these leadership styles. And to be able to now continue the rest of my career knowing how to use them, knowing how to apply them, and continue to do this on a consistent basis, it just makes you a stronger leader the more you exercise these leadership styles.
Absolutely. 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 And I'm going to say one more thing. I know that you did this because you found out that some of your stylists were proficient in different things. There may have been a brief, and I do mean brief, democratic session where you said, okay, what are you good at?
Right.
Where are you comfortable?
Right.
And that might have been a bit of democratic and affiliative, because I also need to make sure you know that I'm not trying to put you in a bad spot. Right. So I'm going to emotionally support you with what you tell me you're good at. And once you've now told me what you're good at, and now you feel comfortable, right, because of this trust relationship we built just off the leadership you've exhibited over this period of time, now I can set pace. But I had to get some emotional support from you because some of them were afraid.
Some of them were
and
afraid.
I have to figure out from a very quick, brief democratic process. Okay, what are you comfortable with? Okay, I can do this. All right, X, good. All right, so I need you to do. And so based on what came out of the affiliation and the democratic styles, I was then able to redirect, cast a vision for them individually, and now set a pace.
Right. Because I think sometimes as a leader, when you have a group of individuals working with you, no one wants to say, well, I don't know how to do that. Right. Or I'm not proficient at that.
Right.
Everybody wants to be on the leader's good side, and oh, you can count on me. But then when you get in the thick of it, right, and darts start flying, you have to be able to read body language. You have to be able to read energy. And I was able to see, okay, this person is uncomfortable clearly with this, doing this texture of hair. Right. So versus making them feel bad as a leader, I just had to move things around and say, you know what, we're going to give you this client and we're going to move her to this chair. And we had this thing going on to where that person didn't even feel like they were being an outcast, or that person didn't feel like they were being pointed out, and everybody knew that this was their weakness. Right. So I had to pay attention as a leader to the crew and what I was dealing with, and make sure that I had a keen eye. Right. Because in those moments as a leader, if it goes bad, it's all going to look bad for you. Right. Because you're in charge.
Absolutely.
You can have the team all day long, but the team is still looking at you to lead them in the way, in the direction that they should go. And the ones that were strong in certain areas, I let them do what they do. I made them a leader in that moment. I said, okay, Carolyn, it's your job to man both of these tables with the retail. This is what you do, The change is here, this is there. Because I also had to jump in as a part of the team and work. Right. Which in the beginning, that's not what I was supposed to be doing. I was just directing everybody, but we were in a situation to where I had to jump in, become a part of the crew, but in that moment, still lead them in the direction that I needed them to go in. Absolutely. And when people see you working, that's where that respect come in, because now it's like, oh, she's not too good or he's not too good. They're willing to get down in the trenches with their people. Right. So now I have this newfound respect for you because I saw you putting yourself in a position just like I was, and still leading us at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That was amazing. And I like pressure like that.
No, Diamonds is made.
I like that pressure.
Under
I work
pressure.
well under those types of situations. And I can tell you my background from being an educator in a cosmetology school gave me a lot of practice with that. Being on a salon school floor is not the same as a salon, that you run on a daily basis as your business. But, being able to move around that fast and give direction and be clear and, make sure that everything is, being done and it's a successful turnout. Because the last thing you need is to give instruction and leave people hanging.
Right.
As a leader.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Well, I want to close this session with, because we're getting close to our time. I want to close this session with leaders inspire.
Mhm.
And I think we all know that one supervisor or that one um, manager or frontline supervisor, whomever they may have been, that really pull the best out of you.
Mhm.
And as entrepreneurs, our job is to, number one, recognize the folks that we have and to pull out the absolute best out of them.
Absolutely.
But I'm gonna say this is something that's not taught in business circles. This is all fueled and channeled by love. I know we don't have love classes in business schools, but he said, a golden rule: do unto others, you have them do unto you. Um, Jesus told us to love one another as I have loved you. This is the first commandment with promise. Corinthians goes on and talks about, if you do all these things, but you don't have love, you're just making a bunch of noise. It calls it a tinkling cymbal. And it says that love is the greatest commandment. But, and so those scriptures can be found in John 15 and 12 and 1 John 4, 7 through 12. But I just want you to just talk to me briefly about, now I got an idea of who that one person was who really, really inspired you. And if you could share with our viewers who that was and how they made you feel and how that may have affected your leadership style today.
Absolutely, absolutely. A person that really pushed me in the direction of just everything in terms of an educator, a business owner, and even in this walk as a brand was none other than Mr. Joe L. Dudley Sr. And I can remember being a student at DCU, Dudley Cosmetology University in Kernersville, North Carolina, class of 96, 97. I can remember being a part of a mentorship program. I was selected to walk with Mr. Dudley every Thursday morning early at 5 a.m. We had to be fully dressed in our suits, head to toe, and presentable.
In the suits.
In the suit.
Wow.
I would put on my blue suit and we would walk with him early morning and we would walk the ground.
How old were you?
I was 18 years old.
Wow.
And we would walk the grounds and he would talk to us about how, and he would tell the story over and over and over and over. And he would talk to us about how when he first found that property, how God led him to that property where he started the company in terms of the actual production of the manufacturing part of the business where they made the products, and then also the actual school grounds itself, and how God had given him this vision and how they had told him that he was mentally retarded and told his mother that he would never read or never write, and how he really put his trust in God. Like his mother raised him up to trust God. His mother would read him the word. He would memorize the word. He would speak those scriptures unto himself. His mom would write the scriptures out for him and teach him how to read the scriptures. And he said that became his new vocabulary. So wow. He spoke those words over his life, all of his life. And when he got an opportunity to work for Mr. Fuller, who had their own product company as well, and he walked with him, he took that with him everywhere he went. He always had that word in him, and through that word he began to get a vision for his own business and his own company. But it came from him being mentored by someone else who had something similar, but he was able to take that vision and expand it and make it bigger, better, and greater. And one thing I could tell you, Mr. Dudley never made himself bigger than the rest of us. He always talked to us on a level of, I know where you are, and I was too in your same position, in your same role. And what he wanted to instill in us more than anything was to have the mindset that when you have a vision, apply the word of God to your vision and you can achieve it. And for me, that was everything, because, I didn't grow up seeing what he said happen in my family. So to me, he became someone who was a great leader And every morning when we would have those meetings, we would go, some days he would take us into the manufacturing side of the company, and we would go in and we would put on hairnets, we would put on gloves, and we would screw on on top of one of the products called Scalp Special, and everybody would get in the line. And so we began to work. He was working with us while he was pouring on the inside of us at the same time, and everyone was working. And before you know it, we're packing up boxes, and he's still pouring, he's educating us. So every morning, every Thursday morning, it was a different experience. We never had the same experience every time. It was always a different experience, and he was trying to teach us how to have vision and how to operate when you have that vision, how to operate in that vision and pour into other people that vision that you have, so then they can develop their own vision. And, you know, I can tell you over time, he would give us different tasks and different things to do. He had a lot of sales reps that was also walking in those walks in those mornings. And I can remember Mr. Rudy Artis, who's also now a CEO of his own company called Influence Hair Care Product Line. And he was right there in those walks too. So now to see him as a CEO, and he was able to now take Mr. Dudley's vision of what he started, and that gave him vision for his own company because he loved what he saw so much. And he was able to now expound on that and then make it. You know what I'm saying? It was like you can see the tier from where Mr. Dudley came from to what Mr. Dudley created, and then to see, you know, him come along with the influence, and the list goes on and on and on. There's also others, but what I can tell you is when you don't have a vision and you get under leadership that does have a vision, it will lead you to your vision.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was amazing. I can never ever forget those moments because I was a very young girl and I didn't know what I really wanted to do. And I didn't go into this thing to really do hair. I went into cosmetology as a means to an end because I knew that I could make good money. I knew I had talent, and I wanted to go to a different school. I wanted to go to a college, and then I just fell in love with it. It was a passion that was on the inside of me. So when I found out there was a university that I could go to and I can learn business, I could learn product development and management, I can continue to learn skills. I mean, I ran right into it. I really did. And it was my destiny. It was just God's plan.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. My story isn't that good, so I'm not even going to tell it.
Everyone has their own story. Tell your story.
Well, I mean, the two gentlemen that had the most influence in my career was a gentleman named David Smoke and Michael Shirley. I was the new engineer working for the Department of Defense, and these gentlemen just took time with me. David at the time had got his GS-15 before 30, which gave me a goal to work toward. And he told these amazing stories. He was just a likable person. And he was super smart. So, you know, we talked about the chart earlier about people who get results. He was one of those people who got results. And being that he wasn't much older than me, it gave me something to reach for. And he would tell me, I did this at 30, but you could do it sooner. Now, I ended up not getting my GS-15 at 30, but I did become a GS-14 equivalent before I left federal service. But it just gave me something to reach for. He told the best stories. He was one of those people who could look on the inside of you and say, you need to do this. And I trusted him. And when I did what he told me to do, it literally shaped the trajectory of my career.
Wow.
Because of Mike Shirley, he had some things that were going on in his personal life, and I was traveling back and forth with him to the Assistant Secretary of the Navy's office for research, development, acquisition. I'm working for the number 2 guy in the Navy's office, not his office, the Chief Engineering Office for ASN RDA Chain, Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Research, Development, Acquisition, Chief Engineer's Office. So this is like the number two's guy, the number two office in the Navy. I'm working for that office. And it was a byproduct of me going up and down to the Washington Navy Yard with Mike Shirley.
Wow.
And when he was no longer able to fill that role, and they were like, oh, who's going to backfill Mike? He says, Kurt can do it. And I wasn't really sure I could. But he believed in me. He talked to me. I would go spend time with him at his kitchen table at his house. I remember the first time we sat down, and I did a lot of sales. Even though the government doesn't, quote unquote, do sales, but we still did sales because we were Navy Working Capital Fund, which meant we only got a certain percentage of our money from the Navy, and the rest we had to go raise like a contractor almost. So, and we did services for a bunch of different agencies at that time. I think their mission has changed a little bit since then. But so he would show me how to build a PowerPoint brief. He taught me, hey, don't go in there and be an engineer. Now, we were all engineers, by the way. Don't be an engineer. Don't get in there geeking out. So here's what he called it, geeking out about bits and bytes and how big the pipe is. He says the managers don't care about that. They care about cost, schedule, and performance. And he said most engineers go into those meetings and they want to wow the management team with how technically smart they are. And the manager, the guy signing the checks, the sponsor, don't care about that. So he taught me what I should be focusing on. And he had an MBA and he had a master's in engineering. And that's where I wanted an MBA. And I got a master's in engineering. So it set this, those two gentlemen gave me something different. But those two men helped create a framework for me that I ended up being. And then David had a master's in management. So both of these guys pursued advanced, and I'm working on a PhD in management. So both of these guys worked on themselves and on their career. And they not only were they smart people, they went and got the necessary education that confirmed who they were. Not that their education made them, but I'm a huge education proponent. And I remember Mike Shirley was the guy who told me, do not give them a reason to tell you no. And I looked at him, I said, what does that mean? He says, for example, we had to go through the Defense Acquisition University, which is one of the training requirements for engineers. He said, just go and do it. He says, don't go for the job. Because I was looking at trying to become a branch head at that time, which I ended up not doing. But he says, don't go for the job and give them the low-hanging fruit to tell you no. Make it hard to get a no. All the things you know you're supposed to do or you should have done to go apply for this, have already done it. Don't go in there make it hard for them to deny you. Those were the things I learned from those gentlemen.
Wow.
And they hung around other people that were well-versed. They had another guy named Bill Schneider. Bill Schneider was an engineer who was thinking about going to law school.
Out names.
I am, who thought about going to law school. And so I was amazed at how well-read he was. And so each one of these people in my life gave me something different that I have taken and I think have embodied versions of it to become who I am today. Amen. So again, my story wasn't as prolific.
The story was amazing.
And inspiring as yours was. I wasn't walking the grounds at 19 with a suit on.
But that's okay. It still makes sense why you are as ambitious as you are and why you are the leader that you are. You know, you embodied that. And that's what makes, that's what makes more great leaders. Yeah. And we have a responsibility as leaders, like you said, to lead with love. Yeah. And if you are not leading with love, you're leading with that iron fist and that slamming that gavel every time.
Manipulation and control.
Yeah, control. Those things, first of all, it's not godly.
And it's not sustainable.
And it's definitely not sustainable. People are going to get tired of you eventually. And people are not going to have the respect. When you have to force respect on people, it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen.
I've never seen someone willing to lay their life down, figuratively, for someone who ruled them with the iron fist. There was this trust relationship that was built. That person genuinely knew this person cares about my interests. They may ask me to do some hard things, nothing illegal, nothing immoral, nothing illegal, nothing dumb. But they may ask me to do some hard things, but because I know they have my best interests at heart, and they have the organization's best interest at heart, I'm gonna do it. And that's the kind of leader I want to be, not the guy who, now as we talked about the different leadership styles, we sometimes have to be commanding, but that can't be my sole style in which I treat every situation in which I encounter. Can't be.
Right. And when people know that you can flow like that, they might not know what those quote unquote leadership styles are.
Right.
But when people now have to go and talk about you, what they will say is, now I'm gonna tell you this now. If you ain't doing what you're supposed to do, she gonna snap you back into reality. She gonna push you in the right direction,
right.
And you got to be able to take that. But at the end of the day, she does it with love, or he does it with love. He
right.
genuinely wants to see you be successful. So sometimes you got to be able to eat crow right. so that you can push forward and move yourself in a direction that you know at the end game is that I want to be X, Y, and Z. And a lot of the people that worked in my salon, their end game was they wanted to own their own salon. Right. So because I knew what that end game was from the beginning, having that very first interview with them, and I let them set their own expectations of what their path was going to look like. Mm-hmm. And then when things would happen, or I would start to test them, move them from one level to the next level, sometimes I would have to come back and remind them and hold them accountable. A good leader always holds her employees, or his or her employees, accountable to what they said. So, getting them to understand that, hey, this is where you're trying to go. This is what you said from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Now your performance is going to have to be here. So now they recognize and realize that this person loves me. This person is pushing me in the direction that I stated for myself, for my life, right. So I think that's just a part of, how we're supposed to move and how we're supposed to operate. And leadership it can be in so many different ways. I know personally myself, I got involved with, coaching. I got involved with coaching last year. I started a coaching program, which I put on hold for this year because I'm back in school learning some things. So I decided to pause that. But throughout that process of coaching, I understood that these people put their lives, their livelihood in my hands as a coach. Right. But at the end of the day, a coach can lead you all day long. But if you don't apply those principles, and if you're not willing to make that change, and if that coach, that's your leader, can't come back and advise you to go in this direction, then what's the purpose? And what I can tell you is I absolutely love being a coach. It does take a lot of energy out of you because, sometimes with coaching, you now are going to find the fine line between mentoring and coaching.
And it is a fine line.
It's a fine line. Coaching, you pay for coaching. Can you get coaching from someone that is not charging you? Absolutely. Yeah, you can. Yeah. But most of the time in this day and age, a lot of people who are mentors have turned coaching into a business for themselves because of the time that it takes to pour into people. And you're literally helping them map out their path. Right. And that is very time consuming. And also it can be a little bit overwhelming. So, when it comes to mentorship, that personal relationship that you build with someone that says, I'm going to take you along with me. Let's go. This is happening. Come on, let's go. Let me show you the way. Let me allow you to be with me in these situations so that you can watch me in action. And now you can also come along and be of some assistance in that area. And now I can help you grow and I can help you mature with a hands-on approach, versus coaching is a little bit more of a structured program that you push people in this direction of, and they have to still find their own way, still have to make necessary adjustments, but you set up a personal plan for those individuals and push them in that direction. So yes, it is a fine line. I found myself, a lot of my coaching students really fell into mentorship with me after their coaching program.
And I think that's the key. Coaching, by definition, what coaching is typically short term and it's very directed. There's some end product that you're trying to get to, whether it's a specific milestone, learning some type of skill, or some type of competency development. It's very defined, and it's a short-term engagement. And when I say short-term, let's say 18 months or less. Mentorship is typically a long-term, multi-year engagement, and it's not going to be as specific. It might be career advice. It might be family dynamics. Whereas coaching is typically short-term engagements. I'm having a challenge. Structured. I'm helping you get through this hurdle. Whereas mentoring is more of a long-term, multi-mirrored approach. And a coach and a mentor can be the same thing, but typically they're not. So yeah, it's just really just understanding what is it that you need. It's just I'm trying to get over a hump, because a coach could be another employee in an organization who figured out something you haven't figured out, and they say, "Oh, do boom, boom, boom."
That's
boom.
true.
So that could be a coach, or it could be like Keena said, it could be a paid thing. I'm trying to get, I want to become a salon owner, and I want to learn these things. Like your program is very structured. This is what you get from this coaching program,
right?
And if Keena's program matches up with what you need, then you pay. There may be another program, so you have to make sure that what that coach is offering dovetails nicely into what it is that you need. And then a mentorship, like she said, is a longer term, more holistic in terms of its depth and breadth in terms of what you're getting from that provider,
absolutely,
paid or not.
Absolutely. So I think we did a pretty good job of breaking down leadership abilities, different leadership styles, what makes you a great leader, how you can develop as a leader. And hopefully you all were able to take away some really, really good gems from tonight's lesson.
Absolutely. I hope so. Share, subscribe, tell your friends, family. Like I said, Keena and I are doing this, just something we wanted to do in hopes of trying to grow 1,000 new entrepreneurs. COVID has put a lot of people in a very challenging situation. Some of you are being entrepreneurs by default, don't have a job. I think I seen a number the other day, 56 million people are unemployed. And I don't think those jobs are going to all come back right away.
Right.
So you may be forced to now start exploring different opportunities and avenues to provide for your family. So with everything that's going on in the world, Keena and I believe we're giving you guys some high quality education. As you know, we spend a lot of time and money investing in our own personal lives in terms of education and mentoring, support, and things we do to make sure we're bettered. And so we're giving to you absolutely free of charge, just as our way of trying to help you navigate your way into this new role of entrepreneurship.
Amen. Yes, so thank you guys so much for joining us. If you have not joined our mailing list, make sure that you click the links down in the show notes that will give you an opportunity to sign up with your information so that you guys can get emails from us every week. We're going to be giving you little nuggets and tidbits on the lessons and also resources on where you can also, just get some interesting books. And we just really want to make sure that we lead you in a path that's going to help you as an entrepreneur. And you guys already know we are believers of Jesus Christ. We follow his principles. We are not here to be preachy to you guys.
Not perfect.
We are not perfect. But what we do know is when we operate in his principles, operate by using the word of God in our lives, in operation of our businesses, that there's no way God will leave you hanging. No way that you will just be out here in the dark, and God won't, Holy Spirit won't correct you and lead you in the path that you need to go in. So we thank you guys so much for joining us for another lesson, and we'll be back with you guys again next week.
Until next time.
Until next time, be blessed.